Today, we're diving into a really fascinating theological idea from Daniel N.B. Lamptey's book, The Lamb, the Cross, and the Water. It gets right to the heart of a question many of us have wondered about, the origin and nature of sin itself.
So let's kick things off with the big question the author wants us to think about. Does it matter where a sin comes from? I mean, is a transgression that just bubbles up from inside you the same as one you're kind of tricked or tempted into from the outside? That's the core idea we're going to unpack.
Here's how we're going to break it down. We'll look at two crucial falls, the internal war they sparked, see how an ancient story brings it all to life, and then finally explore the path to victory. So, let's get into it.
All right, first things first, we have to start with a really crucial point from the book. Humanity did not invent sin. Nope, that story actually starts way earlier. The author Daniel N.B. Lamptey makes it super clear that Lucifer's fall happened before Adam's. Now, this isn't just a fun fact for a timeline. It is the entire foundation for his argument. It sets the stage for two totally different kinds of transgression that come from two very different places.
So, that difference in timing creates this massive distinction between these two falls. Even though both were acts of sin, the author argues they just don't carry the same weight because they didn't spring from the same source.
And wow, this really lays it all out, doesn't it? Satan's sin was an act of initiation. It came from inside him, born out of his own pride. Adam's fall, on the other hand, was an act of response. He was tricked, he was pressured, he was led into an act that wasn't born in his own heart first. See the difference?
Now, this is where it gets really interesting. Check out the consequences. For Satan, since the sin came from within, his God nature was totally wiped out, just gone. But for humanity, because the sin was more like an external add-on, our God nature was only damaged, marred, stained, but not destroyed. And according to the author, that single difference is what makes us redeemable, and Satan, irredeemable.
Okay, so what does any of this cosmic drama have to do with us today? Well, this is where the author brings it all home, right into the human soul, to explain that internal conflict that, let's be honest, so many of us feel. I love this metaphor. It's so powerful. Sin isn't who we are at our core. It's presented here as this invasive force, a parasite that latched onto humanity after Adam's fall. It lives alongside our original design, our God nature, and it's in a constant battle, always trying to take over.
And you know what? This isn't some new idea. The Apostle Paul described it perfectly. He talks about feeling these two laws, these two forces just at war inside of him, one pulling him toward what's right and the other trying to drag him into captivity. Sound familiar?
So, to put it simply, here's the core idea. We're all born with this internal duality. We've got our original God-given nature, and then we've got this parasitic sin nature. And the author uses a really famous biblical story to paint a vivid picture of exactly what this internal war looks like.
Get this. The story of Jacob and Esau isn't just about some ancient sibling rivalry. It's presented as a living, breathing allegory for the two natures that are at war inside every single one of us.
But first, to really feel the weight of this story, you have to understand that being the firstborn was a massive deal. It wasn't just about getting more stuff, it was about carrying the family's spiritual destiny, and in this case, preserving the sacred line the Messiah was promised to come through.
So you read a verse like this, and it's pretty jarring, right? The word hate, it's so strong. But the author suggests this isn't about some personal dislike for the man Esau. It's a divine rejection of the nature he chose to live by and the choices he made.
I mean, just look at the evidence. A pattern starts to emerge pretty quickly. He's called profane. He despises his sacred inheritance so much he trades it for a bowl of soup. He deliberately marries into a family line that God warned against, almost becoming a tool to poison the messianic promise. This whole pattern, the author says, is a perfect picture of the sin nature in action.
And when you put them side by side like this, the picture becomes crystal clear. Esau just embodies that destructive sin nature. He's driven by his appetites, totally blind to his spiritual purpose. And Jacob, well, for all his flaws, he represents the God nature that's trying to protect what's holy, driven by a higher purpose. One defiled the promise, and the other preserved it.
Okay, so if we've got this war raging on the inside, how do you actually win it? Well, the author wraps up by showing us a clear path to victory, and once again uses Jacob's life as the ultimate roadmap.
This right here is the absolute game changer. The name Jacob literally means supplanter or deceiver, But Israel means he who strives with God. It's a total identity shift. And the moment Jacob's identity was transformed by God, the lifelong pursuit by Esau, by the sin nature, it just stopped. It lost its power over him.
So the author boils it all down to this simple but incredibly profound path. Just like Jacob, victory over that internal parasite isn't about fighting harder in our own strength. It's about surrender to the Messiah. That surrender leads to a total change in our identity, a new name, spiritually speaking. And it's in that new identity that the sin nature that used to hunt us is finally, once and for all, defeated.
So, this entire framework from Daniel N.B. Lamptey really reframes that internal struggle we all feel. It's not a failure of who we are at our core. It's a war against an invasive nature that was never supposed to be there.
And that brings us to the final thought. The author's whole cosmic explanation becomes a deeply, deeply personal question. If this internal war is real, if there are two opposing natures inside you, then every choice you make, every thought you entertain, it's feeding one side or the other. So the real question is, which one are you feeding?
Look, if this breakdown got you thinking and you want to dive deeper, the full argument is right there in the book. It's a seriously thought-provoking read, and I highly recommend checking it out. You can find it on Amazon.com.